Hi, my name is Lyle Sopel, and I'm a Jade and Gemstone artist, and you're here with me in my studio today. And as you can see, I'm doing some drawings of a project that I have in the works, and I just wanted to give you some examples of how I begin a project. And so these are some storylines and a variety of different images that I've drawn out to help me understand what I want to express in the owl form that I'm working on. So if you've been watching my Facebook page, you've noticed that I've been working on one particular owl for a few months now, or not a few months, a few weeks. And so it has been progressing, and so I just wanted to give you some concept of how it might have started. And so these are some general ideas. And what I'm doing when I do this kind of drawing is I really am just kind of freeing my mind of a variety of ideas that I might have. So I just get it out on paper. I express through just quick sketches and not too worried about it being formal or too well finished. I'm just kind of get the idea onto a page. So first of all, that I can remember it, and also that I can see what it might look like. So here's some other variety of drawings too that I work with, some different ideas that just come to mind, owls in particular, and different forms of ideas that have come through. Some turn into pieces and some do not. Like even a piece like this could be like a very interesting sculpture, but because I like the natural or the moving form of that. If it was a stone or some other, maybe even metal, bronze or something, could make an interesting piece. So if I get a really clear idea of what I want, then I might go a little bit further with it and make it a bit more exact. So this is a great example here of what I'm planning to do with this sculpture that I have in the studio now. Is I'm trying to fit it to a branch, and the feet will be carved separately and then fitted on. So this gives me a really clear idea of the kind of thing I'm looking for. So let me show you actually what point that's at right now. So I have a barn owl, and what I've done is this is made out of jasper, and I've got a cachalong as the white for the barn owl face. Now I've drilled 2 holes and I've got the feet set up, and I've got a branch with holes also drilled in it that match the holes here. So that will give me the first step. Now I have a base that this is going to carry on. I can see your compliments today, so thanks so much, Helen, for the compliments. I wanted to just show you here how this is going to come together as a composition. So this is Tiger Eye, and I made this as a tree stump in 2 pieces. There we are. So eventually it'll sit very soundly like that on the base, but for the time being it's going to be pretty wobbly. So I won't leave it up. But what I will do is I want to show you how this owl is going to fit on the branch, just to give you an example of where I've been going with it. So it's very important for me, if you want to come around the other side here, you can see that I've drilled 2 holes into the stump, and I've drilled 2 holes into the branch, and I've got the owl stationed on there the way I want him to be. So I'll just line up those holes and hopefully get them on there without too much trouble. There we are. So there he sits. That is really hard to do, for me anyway, is to get that owl in the correct position. And sometimes that's the thing that really makes a piece look awkward, is when you have to struggle so much with materials. And so I'm trying to get over the struggle part and make sure that I get the gesture that I want in this piece. And so struggle I mean by trying to get the right angle and trying to get the right fit and composition wise and all on. So the next aspect of this is to carve the feet to fit the branch. And then there's going to be a baby owl inside the trunk of the rotten tree. So it's almost there. We're carving the baby owl at the present time, and so that'll come up. By next week we should have a pretty finished looking piece here. But I really like the idea that it's multi stones, different colors. So I have a question for you, because we're going to talk about price and value today. I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the main thing that has contributed to your particular success for a thriving art studio business? What do you think your one thing is that has really helped you keep a sustainable art career? Now, I know some of you may not have a sustainable career, but others that are watching do have. And so there's got to be one thing that you think is the most important in your career that's helped you keep going and keep making money at your art. So it'd be great if you could share that with us, and I'll bring it up, and if it's a question, I'll answer the question. But if it's a one thing that you would like to share with us, I think it would be great value to everybody that's listening. So let's go on to the next thing here. So I just want to say hi to Ryan. I see you've joined us, and Julie. So good to see you. Let's see. Yeah, so Helen, I'll share when it'll be ready. So it will be ready in a week or two, something like that. So this piece has been in the studio before. You've seen it before here, and it's a ruby. The birds are made out of ruby, and then it's an inset. But I kind of wanted to show you this piece because I've added the feet as a separate part, and that's the intention with the owl also, is to add a separate material for the feet, and it gives it a little bit more of a sense of reality to the piece. Just that little bit of detail really helps. And I've added a nest out of quartz crystal, and this is adventurine the eggs are made out of, so it's kind of a really nice, interesting piece, I think. Obsidian, jade, ruby, quartz, nice variety of materials. Makes it interesting, I think. So price and value, like how do I price a piece like this? You know, like where do I begin with trying to understand how much a piece like this would cost for a collector? Well, it's a really important question, because there's so many ways of looking at that, but in order to come up with a really sound structural way of valuing your art, then you have to have a method by which you price it, a way that you compare your values, like how much you're worth an hour, how much is the material that you're using, or, you know, if you're painting, you know, how much paint do you use, how much canvas do you use, how much does it cost for your studio space, that kind of thing. So I want to talk about the two things. That's the price and the value. Like there's two different things in relationship to getting money for your piece. Now, price is actually kind of just what it costs. You know, all of the things involved in the expense of producing it is the price. But the value is another thing. The value is like perceived value, like how rare that is, how unusual, how talented you are as an artist can add to the value of the thing. And I think a really great way to understand it is to think of big brand names like Gucci or Rolex or anything like that. Like, what does Gucci really have, you know, the leather that's better than anybody else's leather? Does Gucci have, you know, a design that's incredibly better than anybody else's design? Probably not. You know, when you think of it as in a knockoff way, there's a lot of Gucci designs that are knocked off, and they're far lower in value, or let's say far lower in price, but Gucci has a higher value. So there's a great difference there. So it's not materials that are adding to the price. It's the value or the perceived value of the goods. So Gucci, for example, does this incredible example of how to brand or to encourage their value to the work. So they have a lot of history. They have started out as making halters and saddles for horses back in the 1800s, and they still use the same process to make handbags today. So that sense of history adds a great deal of value to what their pieces are today. And so in that way, you can think about your art. So whether you really like it or not, as an artist, you are a brand. You're a Gucci, you're a Rolex, you're, you know, any other of these big brands, Chanel, any of those kinds of things. People look at you, when you sign your work, they look at you, your signature, as a brand. And then they imagine, unconsciously, does it have value? So let's go back to, how do you come to the price first? So I'm going to show you what I do in the studio here. So in this case, we're in the month of September, and I've got the days that we work in the studio, the 5th, 6th, 7th, and so on. And then I list the particular subjects that we have in the studio. So we've had an apple that we worked on, and we've had some barn owls, which I've shown you, and we have a heron here. So these are accumulated hours that have gone on to the production of the piece. And so when we go along in the days, we just add, there was another 10 hours on there and another 10 hours for the apple. And so we add them all up when the piece is complete, further down the calendar, then we add up what the hours are. Now those hours have a value to me because I know what my overhead is. I know how much it costs to pay for my studio. I know how much it costs to buy the stone, and I know how much all of the costs involved on a monthly basis are added to the outcome. So I just break it down, chunk it down to an hourly rate. So I apply that hourly rate of my expenses to this. And that's how we come up with a price. Now that way, it just ensures that I'm able to get a decent living for what I produce, and it helps me pay for the materials. That's only the price, but the value can be added to it depending on how unusual this is. Like for the rubies or something of that sort, the value can be much higher because who carves rubies besides Louis Alberto? Not too many people that in the world that actually know how to do that. So that adds a value to this thing. And so the rarer the materials, the higher the value. So I consider that also when I price a piece. It's like there should be more value to it than just the price. So I'm going to give you another example of what I encountered as a young artist when I was trying to sell my art to galleries. I'd go in and I'd have a beautiful piece made, and I'd ask them if they'd want to buy it, and they'd look at it and say, "How much? You want that much for that piece?" I said, "Well, you know, I deserve a certain amount of money for the time I put into this, and so that's what I want for the sculpture." And they say, "Well, you know, we don't know. We've never seen your art before," or something like that, and we put it in our gallery. Their attitude is, it has no value until a collector has an interest. And until a collector has an interest, then in the gallery's mindset, there's no value until someone actually buys it. So how do you get over that? I mean, like as a young artist, how do you get past that? Well, the way to get past it all is to have a really sound structure when you price your art. This is a really good start. How much does it cost you per month to keep your studio open, keep yourself paid, pay your rent, and live the way you want to live? Break it down by the hour and put that down on your piece. Now that works. That works for pricing if you do two things. You have to have a consistent manner of working. So you have to have a high skill level. It's not, you can't do this pricing if you are going to take, you know, a really long time to try to figure out how to make something you've never made before. You can't really do that. You can't add extra hours onto something that you really don't know how to make. So you have to have a pretty high skill level in the thing that you're doing. So also, you have to have a consistent genre or a consistent kind of thing that you would be wanting to work on. Like say I work with animal forms, I work with semi-precious stones, that kind of thing. So that works that way. So the two things, you got to have consistency in your work methods and then a consistency in the kinds of things that you produce. So I have a question from Mike. He says, are you a number one or a one-man carver, or have you a team? As us in Thailand, well, I do have a team actually. I have two people that support me in the studio here. I just employed a new person that started this week as an assistant, and I have my son here that's holding the camera. He's there he is. He's also here in the studio with us. So that's my team here, and then I have a group of people that help me with the marketing, and they're sometimes virtual, but I have Lee as a digital marketer that supports us, and my wife Colette also works as a marketer and a salesperson as well. And I have a variety of other people kind of in the background that work as a virtual support. So there's a team. There's definitely a team, and I see myself as the instigator of the designs. I follow through on all the aspects of the creating of the sculptures. I sometimes initiate the marketing concepts and ideas, and we go from there. But yeah, there's definitely more than just me, for sure. So yeah, so I think that's all I really wanted to share with you today. Just one little adjunct to this idea of being successful, having good prices, adds more value. Your marketing is really the thing that gives you your value, and the better you become at that, you know, the higher your perceived value will be, the higher your prices are going to be, and the more you can justify it. So you got to be strong with a great idea on how you're going to price it, then you can justify your values. If you're just guessing, like it's priced because the guy that does the same thing next door prices it that way, it's not good enough. You have to know yourself. What's your values? What's your price? And what's your value? So also, you might be really, really good at what you do. That adds value. And recognize that in yourself. Like, know that you are good at what you do, and that can be a great asset to your success. Your own recognition and your own acknowledgement of your quality is also a great way. So I have a little note here from Jane, and very different from back in the 80s. She said, well, Jane Mason knew me way back in the 80s, and so Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, Jane's husband Jeff helped me a lot when I was beginning in my early years as an artist. So I've always thanked Jeff for his support as a business coach. And so Mario, I see Mario's online here, and how much can you increase the value of a piece with the scarcity of the material used? Well, you know, if it's the only piece of material, like if it is like the only piece of jade that's ever been carved that way, then it's got an exorbitant value. But you have to prove it. And you have to be able to prove it to your clients, and they have to know that it is. So if you've got a purple piece of jade, or, you know, vibrantly bright color that no one's ever seen before, you know, it's easier to justify the value. But you first of all have to be able to educate your clientele. If your clientele doesn't know that, they're not going to be aware. So you got to be able to educate. So if you have examples of your work and you say, you know, this piece is this color and that's another one, and this is so rare, I've never seen that before, ever, found once in a lifetime kind of thing, then the value can be much, much higher, for sure. But you have to know your marketplace too. You know, if your clients are only used to spending $1,000 and you want $10,000, then it's going to be a little bit more tricky to get that kind of price for your work. So if you have bigger marketplace, yeah, you can do it. Use the internet, you know, advertise to the people that know what that value is. So that's just a little bit more information. Yes, Mike is saying that Germans have some of the best carvers in the world, and the Russians have also some of the best carvers in the world. And in Thailand, they are very highly trained, and there's a really strong craft school or craft appreciation in Thailand, and I think it's easy to transcend from a culture that really appreciates the craft, like in Thailand, where we can be very well educated in how to produce certain kinds of things, and it's easy to just push it over to a different thing like jade work or something else, because there's the appreciation in the culture and people are trained to do it. That's the same case in Germany, where they've been sculpting hard stones in Germany for like 2,000 years. It's been a long time. And so it's ingrained in the culture, and it's taught as a high-level skill and a craft there. So people develop more, and they can develop into the artistic thing that they are. Russia is the same kind of thing, where hard stones have been known in Russia to be carved for many, many years, back in Fabergé time, and before that even. The stones from the Ural Mountains were used for all kinds of royal purposes, and so, cultures have this appreciation. North America, it's a different thing altogether. Our culture is quite different in the sense of craftsmanship and appreciating art. It's not that we don't, it's just that our culture is newer, and so we don't have that historical reference to draw on. And so it's always an educational thing. So maybe at some point in the near future, I'll talk more about marketing, about how to really introduce your art to your culture and to your collectors, so they can appreciate it more on the level of what it is. So I really want to thank everyone for all your comments, and thanks for being in touch with me today, and I'll see you next week. Good luck. Bye for now.